Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Nice to see so many familiar faces.
Wow. Hey, everybody. It's great to see you. Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. So I'm Linda Isaacson Fideli. I'm one of the co-hosts this evening, and I'll be facilitating. It's great to see so many of your familiar faces, many of which I haven't seen since COVID. On behalf of all of the co-hosts, I'd really like to thank you for being here tonight. We know that your time is valuable and that everybody has been doing way too much Zoom. So we're going to try and keep it short, keep it to the point, and yet still give you a chance to interact with Sue. So the general plan for the evening is that first, we're going to hear a couple of words from each of the co-hosts. So you'll get to meet all of them. You'll then get to hear from a special guest that we have with us this evening in support of Sue. And then we'll hear from Sue herself, who will tell us why she's running and what she hopes to accomplish. And then we'll open it up to questions and answers. So this is scheduled to end at 8. We can end at 8, but we also want to make sure that all of your questions get answered. So if you need to leave at 8, great. If you want to stick around and ask questions, that's fine too. So first, I'd like to hand it off to our first co-host, a very important one, Sue's campaign manager, Hannah Rustica.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah, as Linda said. I'm Sue's campaign manager. And so when Sue asked me to be her campaign manager, obviously I said yes. But I said yes automatically. I didn't need any time to think about it because I knew that Sue would be great for Monroe County, and I wanted to be a part of her journey to get there and to help everyone. So Sue's already proven herself to be a capable and smart leader in so many different aspects of her life. And actually, when we met, we were working on a campaign for another candidate, and Sue was heading up the volunteer division of that campaign, which is a huge undertaking that she did almost entirely by herself. And while she wasn't doing managerial stuff for the campaign, she was doing the legwork, quite literally, because she was walking all over Monroe County delivering literature and recruiting other volunteers to help fight for things that she believed in. So when she asked me to be her campaign manager, I did not need any time to think it over. I just immediately said yes, because I know that she will bring to the Monroe County Legislature the same determination, hard work, and incredible leadership that I saw from her in that campaign. As far as our campaign, the June primary is the first time you will see Sue's name on the ballot, and we have so much work to do beforehand. But that is our big event that's upcoming. And before then, we need to get as many people out to vote as we possibly can. So I want everyone to take out their phones, their calendars, and mark down June 22nd. That is when the primary is, and tell all of your friends and family to mark it on their calendars as well, because we need as many people as possible out voting in that primary on June 22nd. Sue is focusing on a lot of different issues in her campaign and wants to confront a variety of issues once she's in office. However, tonight we'll be focusing mainly on climate change and environmental activism. So if you want to learn about Sue's other platforms, please feel free to email me, and you'll have my email after this, or check out our brand new website, susanhughessmith.com. And thank you all so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the evening that we have planned. So I'll send it back over to Linda. Thank you.
Thanks a million, Hannah. So for me, Sue has been a trusted fellow climate activist over the past 10 to 12 years. She's been brilliant at analyzing what kind of systemic climate solutions would be the most helpful and the most practical, and has urged legislators at all levels of government to enable them. Many people have suggested to Sue that she run for office herself to push those solutions along from the inside. Having already pretty much taken on every other possible role to push for the world she and we want to see, she's now taking on elected official, and I couldn't be more proud to support her. Sue Hughes-Smith has true intelligence, compassion, and leadership ability. I trust her. If you know her, I bet you trust and respect her too. If you don't know her, you'll get a good start during this hour, and we hope you'll invest just as much time and energy as you need to decide whether you trust and respect her enough to want to help her get elected. We all do, and we bet you will too. So I'd like to hand it over to another one of our co-hosts, Sue's friend, Ginny Mazzarella. Ginny?
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Gosh, I met Sue quite a few years ago at church, and our kids became fast friends right away, and Sue and I did too, because we shared so much in common, and especially a concern about the environment. And when my family and I moved outside of the city to a small village outside of Rochester, I saw her take her incredible knowledge about climate change and alternative energy solutions, and she put those into action. And she showed her great ability to get things done, because Sue helped our small village sign on for community solar. Now, what's really noteworthy about this is that I live in a pretty conservative little village, and climate change was not something top of the agenda, nor was community solar, but Sue has the great ability to reach across different points of view, explain things, and welcome folks into new ways of thinking. She's got that gift, as well as the incredible gift of getting things done. And she did that for our little village, and I am so grateful. Sue has got diligence and passion, and I have no doubt that she'll be a terrific addition to the legislature. And that's why I support Sue Hughes-Smith.
Great, thanks, Ginny. Thank you. Next, we'd like to hear from Al Hibner, who's another one of our co-hosts, and also, by the way, is our tech guru for tonight. So thank you, Al.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. My name is Al Hibner. I've known and been constantly impressed by Sue Hughes-Smith for the entire 4 years of my post-retirement climate solutions activism. She's been a role model for me, always ahead always pointing the way forward for our collaborative climate solutions work in the Rochester regional area. Over 2 years ago, Sue was our guest speaker at the very first meeting of the residents committee that I formed in Penfield to explore community choice aggregation for our town. I know it's a mouthful, so I'm just going to call it CCA in the rest of my remarks. Sue educated us then on the many benefits of this program. At our committee's request, she presented to our town's Environmental Advisory Committee and also to the town board itself. Since that time, through her company Rocktricity and their partnership with Jewel Assets, Sue has gone on to secure contracts with several municipalities near Penfield to begin implementing their CCA programs. Sue was a featured speaker. Recently, I attended a kickoff on Zoom of the town of Brighton's CCA program. She answered residents' questions about their new program, a program that will provide them with 100% of their town's electricity needs from renewable energy sources. Penfield's not quite there yet. We hope to have a program just like Brighton's soon. But Sue is always pointing the way forward for all of us to follow. We are most grateful for that, for her ability to take on and get difficult things done, for her superb communication skills, and for her exemplary leadership and innovation in every issue that she tackles. It's for all of these reasons and many, many more that I'm very proud to support Sue's candidacy for the Monroe County Legislature in the 14th District. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Thanks a lot. And for those of you who just joined us recently, welcome. It's good to see you. And we're hearing from some of our co-hosts this evening as to why we're all supporting Sue. And then we'll hear from a special guest, Sue herself, and then take some questions and have Sue answer them. So next, I'd like to invite Emily Hyder to share a little bit about her relationship with Sue. And I want all you folks to know that Emily took on the really important role of treasurer for Sue's campaign. So thank you, Emily. It's a big responsibility.
Thank you. Well, I met Sue about 10 years ago and we become great friends. And I have to tell you, I was impressed right away with Sue and her commitment as she wrangled her 5 little kids and her mother and her husband all to church on time every week. And everyone was dressed well and everyone was ready to go. And right away, I knew that Sue is someone who is dedicated to what she sets her mind to. She will follow up whenever she says she's going to do something, she does it. You'll find that she's someone who feels a moral commitment also to fighting against inequity and environmental issues with practical solutions. On our weekly walks, Sue constantly educates me about the interconnectedness of global climate change with so many other community issues like healthcare and economic development. She brings her own children and her students to rallies and protests around New York State and to DC, and has provided them with opportunities to present to state and federal legislators. I don't know many moms who do this, who have 5 kids. So I'm constantly impressed by Sue. She, as Al said, she is a role model, and I'm proud to support her in her campaign for Monroe County Legislature because I know she will do everything in her power to fight against inequity and to bring positive change to Monroe County and beyond.
Thank you, Emily. Thanks a lot. And now, finally, last but not least, at least in terms of how our team stands currently, we'll hear from Liam Smith, Sue's son.
Hi, everyone. My name is Liam, and I'm Sue's son. I want to tell you a quick story about my mother that I find to be revealing about her character and commitment to service. My parents both loved people, loved children, and have loved teaching at public high schools. But when I was very little, my mother gave up her job and salary as a high school teacher so that she could stay at home with her 5 children. Instead of working for financial payment, she worked for the emotional fulfillment that comes from raising a loving and happy family. During these years, she also did a lot of reading and learning about the risks posed by climate change. She became convinced that climate change is the single greatest threat to my generation and future generations, and she committed herself to addressing this crisis. As my siblings and I began going to school, instead of searching for a full-time job, she took on full-time volunteer climate activism. To this day, she works like 4 different part-time jobs just to make time to fight for climate justice and to serve the people of Monroe County. Serving in the county legislature is the next step in her journey of service to my siblings, our generation, and future generations. My mother prioritizes her family over pay, her activism over leisure, and I know she will prioritize her constituents over everything. I could not be more proud of and excited for my mother as she runs for county legislature. And I'll hand it back to Linda.
Great. Thank you so much, Liam. And I just want to say what a joy it's been to work with all of the people on this team. You guys are amazing. I'm confident that we can get Sue elected, although it wouldn't hurt to have a little more help. So at this point, I'm really happy to be able to introduce our special guest, and that's David Alisea, who is a very knowledgeable and effective climate advocate and political activist. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Linda. Hey, everyone. My name is David, and I'm a climate advocate. I work for one of the nation's largest environmental organizations. And before that, I spent years working on political campaigns. Politics is known to me. I also, until 2019, served on the Henrietta Democratic Committee, and this district actually covers just a little sliver of Henrietta. So I was particularly excited by it. When Sue told me she was running, I was thrilled. My experience working with her in the climate space has been nothing short of wonderful, and I can't envision a person more qualified for this seat. At the same time, I was wondering how such a normal and sane person would take on the insanity of a political campaign. She might regret this. I think like sometime around June, she's going to be thinking, why did I do this? But luckily for us and for Monroe County, she is taking the plunge. I've had the chance to work with Sue on a number of issues around renewable energy. I've seen her groundbreaking work to get communities access to clean energy at a lower price than their utility company. And she's provided me a lot of ongoing support and guidance in my work supporting utility scale renewables. Through that work, I've been stunned by how she has taken a look at the complex political systems that govern our world, learn the actors, and share what she has learned so generously. She has always made the time for me. She has supported my work, and it is so clear that she has put tackling climate change as the #1 priority. Not her own notoriety, not her organization. It is about the mission, not herself. People often look to state, national, or international policy for climate issues, but we are actually seeing the rubber meet the road here on the local level. New York has a bold statewide mandate to be entirely carbon-free by 2050, but many of those decisions are going to be made here locally. And those decisions will not only define whether we meet this goal or not, it also will define who gets the benefit of it. Are we going to have every part of the state get the benefit? Is Monroe County going to be part of the solution? Or is it going to be a laggard sort of falling behind everyone else? And so we've made some progress in Monroe County, but it has been slow. What has been happening is actually in part because of Sue herself, but more needs to be done. And with an advocate like Sue in the legislature poking and prodding her colleagues, I think that we can make the big substantive changes that we need to make here in Monroe County. Monroe County can begin exploring community composting programs to cut down on waste, support the development of utility and community scale solar projects, and put in place the rules needed to phase out fossil fuels in all new construction. These policies will not only help the climate, but they can generate new revenue for counties and towns. They can create good jobs. They'll save people money. And right now in the economic climate we are in, that is so, so critical. And these policies can position our region as a leader in the 21st century economy. While many of us will continue advocating for these solutions from the outside, having Sue in the legislature will make that work so much easier. Climate advocates will have an ally on the inside that we can work with, someone who can get things on committee agendas, that can sponsor bills, and can elevate the voice of the Rochester climate movement in all that day-to-day work that happens in the legislature. Now, there are a lot of candidates out there with good platforms. You read them, they sound great. But Sue not only has good ideas, she has the right skill set to implement those ideas. She has the policy chops, and as others have mentioned, she knows how to bring people together. After 2016, I try to avoid political prognostication, but let's be honest, we're unlikely to have a resounding progressive majority in the Monroe County Legislature. Even if all goes well, this is not a hotbed of progressivism overall. We're going to need legislators who know how to work across political ideologies, even within the Democratic Party. We need legislators who are willing to find creative solutions, all while not sacrificing their ideals. And through her advocacy work, I know that Sue can do that. And I know that she can do it in the legislature. And that is why I am so excited to be talking about her today. I'm so excited to be working for her for the next 5 or 6 months. You probably have a countdown. I don't have it quite yet, but I'm just so excited to see her take this on. So excited to help her out. I'll toss it back to you, Linda.
Okay, thanks a million, David. Thanks for being here. And now the moment we've all been waiting for, Sue.
Great. Well, first of all, a huge thank you to my friends who have put this together, not just this evening, but for the years of time and energy that we've spent together and working on issues with each other. And thanks to everyone else who's joined us this evening. As Linda said, a lot of you I haven't seen in a while, so that makes me super happy. And some new faces as well. So thanks so much for joining us. So my name is Sue Hughes-Smith, and I'm a mom, environmental activist, adjunct professor, and entrepreneur. I'm deeply committed to working on policy to reduce inequality, mitigate climate change, and create a more resilient community. I would describe myself as a pragmatic progressive. I never set out to become an activist or to co-found a climate organization or to be a small business partner. These just resulted from my desire to see our society take action on climate change and my understanding of the steps that are necessary to make that action possible. What motivates me is something much deeper, and that's what I want to share with you this evening. Really, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have lived past 15, but I was lucky. I survived a 2-year illness that included brain surgery, and I cannot possibly describe to you the pain I was in when I awoke from that surgery. But I can say that I lay there, unable to move, unable to receive pain medication, and I wished for death. And then I thought about what there was to live for. And it was the hope of someday having kids of my own that made me want to live. So fast forward 20 odd years to 2007, Craig and I had 4 kids and 1 on the way, and we had settled in Brighton, and I started teaching night classes in environmental health at SUNY Brockport. And one evening I wrote the atmospheric carbon levels on the board, and climate data and projections kind of flashed through my mind, and I thought that number cannot be right. I paused, I checked, and when I realized it was right, I felt panicked. It was much too high and rising faster than before, and the political system was not responding. All I could see were those climate projections and my kids as adults with their lives stretched before them. And I thought, I cannot let that be their future. So I threw myself into fighting fracking and began a really wonderful journey that's connected me with so many amazing people. So in many ways, the best thing that ever happened to me was almost dying at 15, because it left me feeling compelled to make a difference, and that's how I try to live. As an educator, compelled to help others work to be their best. As an activist, compelled to press for solutions. As a mom, compelled to demonstrate how to live with compassion and hope by refusing to live in quiet acceptance of the status quo. As a citizen, compelled to run for the Monroe County Legislature to do my part to enact the policies we need for a future where everyone will be able to thrive. And every day, when I catch myself taking a deep breath, I remember how lucky I am and how much work there is to do. I hope you will join me in that work, and I humbly ask for your support. So that's it. Oh, thanks. So questions that people have, or anything you want to discuss?
So just logistically, Sue,
Please, Linda.
and everybody, because there are so many of us, let's at least start by, so that we're not speaking over each other because it's awkward with Zoom, let's at least start by putting your questions in the chat. If you don't know how to do that, if you hover your cursor near the bottom of the Zoom window, a bunch of little buttons should pop up, and you just hit the one that says chat, and it will give you an opportunity to enter something. If you don't do anything special, it should go to everybody, which is fine, or you can just send it to me. Anyone have any questions?
Sure, so Bruce has one. Well, why being in the Monroe County Legislature will help me achieve my goals? Well, my goals are to help us have a more resilient community, to grow the local economy, and to reduce inequality. And there are a number of policies that we can pursue that will improve lives for other people. And I think I can have demonstrated an ability to move issues forward. And so some things that I'm particularly interested in include diverting organic waste out of our waste stream. It's actually much easier to deal with and much more efficient to deal with than our recycling program, which also could use a lot of work. But so things like that will grow jobs and retain nutrients in the community and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, stretch building codes, no gas in new construction. There are any host of things that we can do at the county level that will set the stage and help the society shift averages. I'm much more interested in averages than I am in individuals making all the right choices. Do you know what I mean?
Thanks, Sue.
Yep.
We also have, how will you make CCA countywide, from Paul?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul. And you cannot do community choice aggregation on the county level. It is a issue that is delegated to the lowest level of government. And that's probably a good thing, because we would not want any conflicts of interest. So I won't be working on CCA at the county level. That's community groups like OWLS and every other town and village and city need to continue advocating for that with their elected officials.
So we also have, who are you running against? And what is your policy platform? What other issues do you want to address?
Sure. So I would love for you all to check out my website that is now launched at susanhughes-smith.com. And you can see some of the issues there addressed, and I'm happy to speak to those. But also, and there was the first part to that question, I feel like, oh, who's running? Well, we don't know for sure yet. There are rumors that someone else on the Brighton Democratic Committee is planning to run, but this individual has not yet filed with the state. So we will see, time will tell. But we're ready, we're preparing for a competitive race. We're expecting there to be a primary, and we're putting the infrastructure in place to run a strong campaign and to do well. So some of the other campaign issues, I see Rachel Barnhart's here this evening, so thank you, Rachel, another county a current county legislator, and one who has the digital divide dear and near to her heart, which is something that I'm very concerned about seeing addressed. Just to give you a short story, when SUNY Brockport went to remote learning last March, I was expecting kids to, my students, many of whom were already learning with me online, I wasn't really expecting them to have a lot of challenges, but I always leave a textbook in the library for them because textbooks are super expensive and a lot of the kids are there on scholarship. And I was surprised to get several emails from kids who didn't know how to find the book because when the school closed, the library closed. And the digital divide is what I'm getting at is more than just whether you have access to the internet. It's whether you're confident and capable at utilizing the internet to meet your needs. And I was surprised that I had kids that I had to help direct on how to access a textbook through used book sites and so forth. So it's a real challenge, it's a real thing, and we really could do a lot more to help prepare kids for the 21st, for our century that we're in. So that would be one. Another huge one that I think is on a lot of our minds is addressing the mental health crisis that's continuing to grow in large part because we just don't have adequate resources for mental health. Certainly the response when there's a mental health arrest that shouldn't be being led by the sheriff or the police department, but should be led by trained mental health professionals. So I'd like to work to ensure that that's the case every time, not just when the sheriff thinks to call the mental health staff, but that should be the baseline of the response. So just to name a few. Any other thoughts?
So an announcement and another question. An announcement for those of you who are not monitoring the chat is that Sue's website is SueHughes-Smith.com, as if Sue Hughes-Smith was all one word.
No, Susan.
Susan, thank you.
Mm.
SusanHughes-Smith.com. Mm-hmm. And now, here's another question, Sue. So from Paul, there are several different disposal companies like Waste Management and Casella that are private companies, but yet they have responsibility to the public. How do you feel about this service being something offered by a municipality, the county or other?
I think it's a really interesting question, Paul, and I would definitely be open to exploring the economics on that. Of course, the private companies are employing people, so that's always a challenge. I actually was surprised when I moved to Rochester, or Brighton really, that we had to pay for trash pickup, because that's always been something that our municipality, where I had lived, that was a municipal function. And that was a part of our taxes. So I was really surprised that one had to pay for that. And it drives me crazy because multiple trucks come up and down our street every week doing the same job, but they're from different companies. So there's clearly a lot of room for improved efficiencies from so many angles when it comes to the waste system. So how much of that could be addressed at the county level versus local towns and villages, I think is something worth exploring. So thanks for raising it.
So also, tell me more about specific environmental policy changes you want to see in the county ledge at the county level.
Sure. So one is something called stretch building codes. So when you build a building today, the standards for efficiency are extremely low. And to meet the CLCP, the new climate law, basically a building built today is going to have to be retrofitted within a couple of years. So it would be good to see all the municipalities, including the county itself, if there's any construction or renovations that are done, adopt something that's called the stretch building codes, which require a higher level of efficiency. Another thing we really have to address is how we manage refrigerants. So not just in refrigerators, but in air conditioning units, geothermal systems and air pumps. There are certain compounds that have extremely high global warming potential, and you could undo all the good you had done if that material leaks out of the systems. So looking at policies to ensure that the best chemicals or refrigerants are what are being utilized as we move to having more and more geothermal and air pump heat systems installed would be one thing. And another is to, on the other end of it, ensure that we're collecting and properly disposing those materials. By and large, it's a cost to people to have them recycled. And so they're often just set out on the curb and or thrown in the trash bin, hoping that no one's going to notice that it went there. So we really are going to have to address both ends of that challenge over time. There's a couple for you. I could talk all day about climate, so at your peril, I suppose.
Right now, there's only one other additional question, Sue. Do you want to say more about that?
About refrigerants? Not really.
Or other policy changes you would like to see?
Sure. I mean, I think I already mentioned the need for organics diversion, and which could then also improve jobs and increase, hopefully, partnerships with local farmers. The PACE financing has got to get passed. It's a ridiculously easy thing, and that should be available today. And what PACE financing is, a way for businesses to access low cost loans so they can invest in their properties by upgrading their efficiency. And right now, it takes a very long time for that to pay back for most businesses because you want to ensure that they're saving money every month relative to the cost of the loan. And it can take 20 years or more to pay that loan off. And most businesses aren't sure they're going to be around 20 years. So it's a way of putting that cost onto the property assessment. So it's kind of like a lien on the property itself, and you pay your taxes and then you pay your liens, and it would make it easier for businesses to access those loans and then invest in energy upgrades. We're also working on a climate action plan here in Monroe County, and I'd like to see that actually come to fruition and then be implemented in the most aggressive way possible. Another no-brainer is something called Clean Energy Communities, which is a NYSERDA program. It's ridiculous that the county hasn't already gotten certified as a clean energy community. I think we're the only county, upstate anyway, that hasn't gone forward with that. And a lot of the work's already been done. It just hasn't been filed with NYSERDA. And the reason why you want to be a certified clean energy community is because it makes you eligible to access grant funding. And why wouldn't we want to get some of New York State's grant dollars coming back to us? Yeah. So there's a few more for you.
Great, great. So before we get to the next question, and I promise I will, Kelly, I just want to let folks know that this session tonight is being recorded. Should have let you know that in the very beginning. If anybody has a concern with it being recorded, you can contact me, or you can email the campaign email, which is contacts@formonroe2021.com. Can I just see, like, can you wave your hand or something if you're concerned about that? Okay. All right, great. So next question from Kelly Sue. What has been the most challenging for you in the last year during the pandemic? And secondly, is there anything you might do at the county level to help with disaster prevention and or support?
Well, those are some thoughtful questions. Thanks, Kelly. You know, I think my family's been particularly fortunate in the pandemic, and that have been able to maintain our employment. And that's obviously a huge problem for so many people. So for us personally, probably the challenge in terms of employment will come in this next year as student enrollment has declined. But in the past year, probably just emotionally being, for lots of people, it's being home. For those of us who are introverts, it's like, yay, great, we love that. But my kids could stand to have more activity than they're currently getting, and so forth. So I really count myself as very fortunate. Is there anything I would do at the county level to help with disaster prevention and support? I mean, I think there's a lot of criticism from the disability community generally as it relates to disaster preparedness. So looking closely at how we communicate with all members of the community and how we improve that access to information, I think is probably a simple first step. And I'd start with that and talking with the folks over in the disability centers. That's probably where I would start.
Great. Next question. Ready? RTS runs public transportation in the greater Rochester area. Meanwhile, though I live in Henrietta, my car remains necessary. What will you do to improve this situation?
Yeah, that's a great question too, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, we need a lot more public transit. I would love to see that. Of course, at the county level, the county can only really have control over county streets. And the Climate Advisory Board just had a presentation about something called Complete Streets this past week, which in theory is a great idea. Complete Streets being redesigning streets so that they are more accessible to bikers and walkers. And I think that's super important. We need to do that. How that gets implemented is another subject of discussion. And I would suggest that we need better oversight and more encouragement that our officials take the approach of not trying to equally prioritize all users, which would include cars and trucks, but actually to start shifting us back towards prioritizing walkers and bikers. So a lot of things in government don't just have to do with, well, what do you plan to do, but a lot more to do with how do you implement it and who have you selected to be the ones who are affecting that implementation, because their perspective really changes how any idea becomes a reality, including boards. And so the Climate Advisory Board, for example, is all white. It's clearly missing a huge swath of our community's perspective. And those are things that have to change.
Questions from anyone else? On day one, what's the first thing you'll do in the county ledge?
On day one, so many things. Well, probably have to look and see if we've gotten any of the clean energy things done from the climate board this year. And if not, then that's where I will start, is working on those issues. Each county legislator tends to have an area of expertise that they bring to the table, and no one currently in the legislature can claim the environment as their area of expertise. So that's really what I would be first and foremost advocating for and pushing for, and where I would probably spend the bulk of my time, because it is very intersectional. And so many people don't really understand how addressing the environment and improving the environment is actually about improving our economy and improving health. And so for me, you can't separate those things, and that's just a particular lens through which I would tackle those issues.
Questions are coming in.
Do it.
Yeah, so this hasn't been addressed yet, Robert. Thank you. How will you address the fake news phenomenon and provide a platform for civil discourse that actually solves problems?
I don't know, Robert. It seems like a huge lift to combat all of fake news. But certainly, I think we need more public officials that are willing to speak on a variety of issues, willing to put their name on the line. And even if it means that you're going to upset a whole lot of people. I know from my work as an activist, we're always looking for elected officials who are willing to sign on to letters to other elected officials or speak publicly on issues. And I certainly would be one of those folks. I don't think I would ever abandon my ideals because it's not politically palatable to others. So I would hope to continue to be a voice for that and give others an opportunity to meet with me and speak with me and hopefully get it in the news, not the fake stuff, but the real stuff.
Great. From David Marcus about building codes. How do you communicate the benefits of them? And are there opportunities for educational partnerships with our local universities?
Yeah, well, it's fascinating. Like on RIT's campus, right? They built a whole building, a sustainable building. And yet then they build 3 or 4 more buildings and they're not built to the same standards as a sustainable one. So, why is that? Why do we pursue the bottom line, even though the rate of return on investment is undeniable, right? So part of the problem is that when we build things, companies and governments or whatever entities aren't incorporating a kind of a life cycle analysis into their decision-making process. And we need to shift that so that you're considering the cost of operation over the long term in determining, well, what are the decisions you should make, right? So that's the best I can do is communicate, is to tell people that it's the smart thing to do, right? A dollar not spent on energy is a dollar you're spending on something else. So why wouldn't people adopt better building codes so that they're not wasting money? That's what we do today, right? We build giant sieves that the energy just goes out of the buildings. Whereas like in Germany, they're building new construction doesn't even have heating systems anymore. They just build such tight, efficient buildings. And so that's money that could be spent in other ways. And I know there's that house built down in, was it in Honeyway, maybe, that did the same thing. So it's totally possible in our climate to build much more efficient buildings and repurpose that money.
So here's another one. I've heard that Republicans in the county have kept wealth out of Rochester, favoring the suburbs. Is this true, and how might you change this? And you might also use that, Sue, to just talk about, how do you work with the Republicans? We know that we're in the minority.
Sure. I mean, I think most of us are aware of a very long, protracted set of policies that have diverted wealth away from the city and into the suburbs, certainly, right, for decades because of redlining. To the extent that we want to blame the Republicans exclusively, I don't think we really can do that. If, Paul, you mean more recently through kind of, there's some legal means by which Republicans have been advantaged. Hopefully we've elected some new people to the judgeships, and so hopefully that will begin to be reduced. Flipping the legislature would be a great thing, definitely, Rachel. But I guess I tend to still believe that most people want the same basic things that I want, even if they think that they are on a different political party than I am. Sometimes it's more about finding the words that someone else can hear than it is really about finding a new idea. And certainly when it comes to renewable energy, I could talk all day about climate, but if someone doesn't care about climate, why would I talk to them about climate? There's lots of other reasons to love renewable energy, right? It's going to save you money. It's just cool. Like, why wouldn't you want to not pollute the air, right? There's lots of other ways that you can talk about an issue. And that's true, not just for climate and renewable energy, but that's true for anything. So I think you have to really actively look for the language that your colleagues can hear and speak to them through their lens. And that isn't compromising your values to do that. It's just finding a path forward that someone else can be receptive to.
So possibly also related to what you were just talking about, Debbie notes that sidewalk snow clearance is so different between Brighton and the city. It's really a lot worse in the city.
Wow, I think it all needs to be improved, quite frankly. I'm going to tell you how many times I've fallen trying to walk on the sidewalks because they're full of ice. Yeah, I think it's interesting, and Brighton certainly has a funding, I guess, for sidewalk clearing of snow, and I'm sure that makes it a lot easier and more efficient.
So because it looks like we've mostly exhausted folks' questions, and because time is getting to be short, we have just a couple of other short agenda items before we hit 8 o'clock. And so at this point, I would like to re-welcome Liam Smith, Sue's volunteer coordinator, to talk about what the needs are.
Thanks, Linda. Hey guys, so yeah, in addition to being Sue's son, I'm also the volunteer coordinator for a campaign. Just want to say a few words about volunteer needs for the campaign. So as you may know, Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1 in the district. So the primary election is really the election. We usually see lower turnout in primary elections. This is also an odd year. We just had the presidential election. So we really need to get people excited to go out and vote again in June. Every person at the polls is going to matter, and every volunteer is going to matter. We're planning for a primary, so we're really going to need volunteers to get voters amped up to vote for Sue. So if you are able, we really appreciate any time you can contribute to the campaign. Just going to drop a link in the chat. You fill that out. It'll has different options for how you can volunteer for the campaign, including things we don't need you necessarily knocking on doors if that's not something that you would be comfortable with. There are many virtual things that we're going to need done. I also want to drop my mom's campaign email. If you don't have a campaign email yet, it's one way you can reach my mom. I'm sure you guys all have other ways you can reach my mom. And it looks like Al just dropped in the donate link in the chat.
Can one of you also put the address for folks who want to mail checks? Great. Thanks, Emily. Can you snag that quickly enough, you folks who wanted checks? All right. Anything else, Liam?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Sue, so anything else you want to say before we all say goodbye?
I just want to say a huge thank you again to all of you. I know many of you have already donated, and I really appreciate your early support, and whether it's a check or whether it's just the good wishes, it really means a lot. And thank you so much. Well, it's an adventure.
All right. So thank you to everybody for coming, from everyone on the team. And thanks for your support of Sue. We're going to make sure she gets elected. Special thank you to campaign manager Hannah. Congratulations, Sue. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.